music that moves you. It could only be one place. Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Welcome to the National Safe Child Show, addressing the health, safety, and welfare of all children nationwide, because it shouldn't hurt to be a child. Here is your host, Tammy Stefano.
Hi folks, welcome to the National Safe Child Show. We have an awesome show tonight, and when I say awesome, it isn't that it's a happy awesome. It's awesome because of the guests that I have in-house today. I'd like to introduce Jules Stein. Thank you for joining us, Jules.
Thank you for having me, Tammy. I appreciate this opportunity.
You know, this is one opportunity, folks, that although she says she appreciates it, I'm sure that she'd like to be saying, I never, ever want to experience this again. And she is here tonight because what she has gone through and what she's going to share, she is voicing, she's being a voice because she doesn't want other people to have this same opportunity, because this is an opportunity that anybody would forfeit in a hot second. We're going to jump right into it. Let me ask you something. Do you feel like you're a victim?
Absolutely.
Yeah. My
daughter's the biggest victim.
Your daughter's the victim. Okay. We've got a heck of a show, folks. Let me get comfortable. Okay. First, let's take, a 30-second elevator speech. Who are you? Give the audience your background so that they understand who is speaking with them. And look right into the camera.
Hi. My name is Jules Stein. I have lived in the Los Angeles area almost all my life. I come from a background of being a paramedic. I was a mobile intensive care paramedic for over 15 years, ending up in the fire department, LA City Fire Department. I was a trainer. I have worked in various degrees as a paramedic. I've worked with Doctors Without Borders. I have worked on oil tankers. I've worked in ERs. And so I do have an extensive medical background. I would find later this extensive medical background would be used against me. I went from being a paramedic to for 911 to working on movie sets as I married into the movie industry. And from there, I did various things, including some writing, and my focus now presently is on producing. I am actually producing a documentary about this very thing. Tammy's well aware of. Yes. Because I feel it's very important for the rest of the world to know what's going on, because everyone assumes that it won't happen to them, and I am proof that a upstanding citizen, an intelligent human being. I believe I'm somewhat intelligent.
You are.
And I was always an upstanding person in my community. I always volunteered. I was a PTA mom. I raised 4 other children and 2 other stepchildren. And I found myself in the circumstances that I ended up in.
In the system called Child Protective Services.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, that you say that. And part of me, obviously going through something like this, you build resentment. But I agree with a former guest that you had named Jason Janabar.
Yes.
And Jason, I thought to myself, my God, here's a man that he paid the ultimate price of being a victim because he lost his son. His son died while in the care of the foster parent. And this was only 7 days after this child went into foster care. And here's a gentleman that should have every reason to harbor so much disdain for the Child Protective Services and was saying, you know what? There are good social workers. This was a system that
Imagine him
started
saying
out.
that, yeah.
Imagine him
I
saying
mean,
that.
it was so large to me.
It was bigger than
Yeah,
life for
yeah.
me when I heard him say that. This is
Yes.
a person. I can't even imagine
Yeah.
his grief.
That's
I can't
right.
even imagine for a second his anger or his frustration with what this man has had taken from him.
Yes.
And then still fighting for his daughter, Sarah. I
That's right.
find that appalling.
I know.
That he's still in this.
That his,
I call
his
it the
children
black
are
hole.
still in this system.
Yes, his
The system
children.
that killed his child because they failed to listen to the parents who knew better, who knew.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. He too had a son that had some medical issues. His son had autoimmune problems and a thyroid condition. Like my daughter has had autoimmune issues since the age of 5 or even less than that. She had croup that extenuated after the age of 4. Reactive airway disease was the diagnosis. Then
The diagnosis by whom?
by doctors,
By
her
doctors.
pediatrician.
Okay.
Yeah. So she had been on, needed inhalers from time to time,
Right.
needed a nebulizer from time to time, but for the most part, very healthy. We had
She
a lot
went
of
to school. You
Yeah, she
said
went
you
to
were a
school.
PTA
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
Things were great.
Things were great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, the only thing that they could ever diagnose her with was on her blood work. It would say her antinucleic antibody, which is called ANA, and that's a big word, antinucleic antibody. I learned that over years. Because being a paramedic doesn't mean I'm a doctor, and
That's
I certainly
right.
don't know how to read medical labs. That's
But when
sure.
it comes to your child,
But
we can
you
say the
learn,
biggest
you
words,
learn.
and we know what's happening because
Yeah.
that's what parents do.
Yeah.
That's what good parents do.
Yeah. So she had a high ANA, antinucleic antibody, which showed autoimmune, but they could never pinpoint anything. And it's just really unfortunate that when you have children like this, that nobody has a specific answer, but yet they have an array of different symptoms
Of course.
from time to time. And likewise, I said she rarely had symptoms, but on the night of October 14th in the year of 2013, her symptoms became so pressing that it wasn't something you could just say, "Oh, honey, just walk it off. You'll feel better," or why don't you try to lay down and see how you feel, or do something, and sometimes you, as a parent, I think sometimes we kind of try to play it down for them.
Right. You
'cause
try to
kids-
minimize it because they're
kids-
already.
Yeah, because they always get worked up sometimes.
That's right.
And then you think, oh, okay, you'll be okay. Just
That's
try
right.
to go to bed and, the headache will go
You're
away. or
rubbing
what
their
have
back.
You.
You're taking care of them.
Exactly.
Finally, they fall asleep. They wake up and the fever's gone or whatever's gone. You
But
cited this
when-
date because this
Yeah.
date had great significance in your
Yeah.
life, right?
Yeah.
Tell the audience about that.
But when your child wakes up in the middle of the night and in excruciating abdominal pain and vomiting projectile, that's not something you can just say, oh, that's nothing. You have to, I thought, okay, my God, what's going on? Are you getting,
Right.
We were at family's house in Big Bear for a birthday party.
Okay.
We went to bed that night and she woke up and she started the vomiting and the abdominal pain. She finally got back to sleep. It woke everybody up in the house. It was so loud. Finally, she went back to sleep about 5 a.m. and she got up and she seemed to be feeling a little bit better. So I thought, oh, well, maybe she has the flu. So
Right.
not to get everybody in the family sick, let's just drive back home. So that's what we did. And then, I treated her as if she had had the flu. I gave her chicken soup. I gave her Tylenol. And
The usual.
the usual things. And it didn't, over a period of 3 days, it didn't get better.
Okay.
It seemed to get worse. And it seemed that every time she ate a meal, she would start crying and screaming and holding her stomach. And then the only time she got relief was when she started this projectile vomiting. So, by day 3, she started this earlier in the day instead of all night. And I said, okay, this is not the flu. Something's very, very wrong.
Right.
So I took her to Children's Hospital.
Children's Hospital where?
Emergency room in downtown.
Downtown.
LA.
So Los Angeles
Yeah.
Children's
Yeah.
Hospital. Okay. And that's great. That's the place to take a child that's sick. We're better. You certainly don't want to take them somewhere where they don't have pediatricians that are familiar. So how did that go?
Well, you know what? When she got to the ER, the doctor really took it very seriously because her pain was at such a high level, and they tested her for everything. They the doctor told me, I'm testing her for pancreatitis. The first thing he thought was pancreatitis or appendicitis.
Right, of course.
So they pretty much subsequently ruled everything out, and then they were going to send us home. By this time, we'd been there all day and all night, so it was about 11 o'clock, and I said, well, it seems after she eats that this gets worse, so can you just feed her before I take her home,
Right.
just to make sure she's really okay. And sure enough, they fed her some food because they had NPO'd her as soon as she got in, which NPO is another word for nothing per oral, which is
Right.
another thing I learned because my daughter was on that so much and so many days upon
How
days
old was she at
not
this time?
eating. She was 15.
She was 15.
Yeah.
Can we say her name?
Dakota.
Dakota. And folks, she's just a beautiful, lovely young lady.
Yeah.
And she was suffering.
She suffered so much.
She was
God,
suffering. So from October 13th, 2013, you take her to the... Okay.
3 months we would be in Children's Hospital. I think probably
3 months, why?
because she continued to vomit.
And the
they
doctors
couldn't find out why. They
See, folks,
couldn't
remember
figure it
something.
out.
It's really important that people know. Doctors are called practicing physicians. We don't have it down pat. We're all students here, some more skilled than others, but still practicing.
Right.
They didn't have a diagnosis for Dakota.
And it's very frustrating because, I would be basically in the hospital with her all day and all night and just watching her suffer. They would take her off of food completely. So if they took her off of food for about 5 days, she seemed like she would improve. Then they'd send her home. Then as soon as she started eating or trying to drink again, she would become dehydrated to the point where one time she actually fell unconscious and hit her head and ended up back in the hospital because she wasn't able to keep food down.
Okay, so she's going through some real stuff. The doctors recognize it. Obviously, listen, 3 months in the hospital, they know something's going on.
The one clue that I had, one of the times that I was taking her back to the emergency room, she had eaten, she would crave protein. She would crave eggs, omelets. She wanted because she had omelets in the hospital, so she kind of liked them. And then I thought, she just likes them. But no, I really think she craved them for a reason.
There was something to it, yeah.
She had eaten it for breakfast, and then she had some rice for lunch, just a tiny bit of rice. And she ended up getting really bad again. We ended up taking her back to the ER. But when we got to the ER, when we got there, she started to vomit. She started to vomit what she had eaten for breakfast. And by this time, it was like 4 p.m. And I told the doctor that was there, I said, well, wait a second. Why is she throwing up
Why
breakfast?
didn't she digest this?
What is going? I said, this has to be a really important sign. Please call the gastroenterologist and tell her.
Well, you're the mom. Listen, the doctors see her for X amount of time along with hundreds of other children. But you're watching one person, your baby.
Yeah.
And so you would know better.
Right.
And really good doctors rely on parents who do keep a close eye on their children. Did they appreciate all of the work that you had done?
Yeah, I mean, I had some doctors that were amazing. They would talk to Dakota. They'd get thorough histories. They'd talk to me to get a thorough history, and they would listen to me. I had, other doctors that were not like that. But, you just kind of try to, negotiate through this field of doctors. Where you're
so there was good doctors.
Yeah,
they're good doctors. You're talking to them. They're admitting her again. You're saying, hey, listen, I've noticed something. I think it's very substantial to what's happening here. We've already been in the hospital for months.
Right.
The symptoms are still continuing. There has been no diagnosis that is solidified.
So what they did from there was they did something called a delayed gastric emptying test.
Okay.
And it's where they feed the child radioactive food, and then they basically put them in a radiation,
Tube,
X-ray machine, basically, and wait for the food. They actually watch the food passing.
It's like a contrast,
right?
So that they can see.
But they have to go to sleep in there. They lay in there for about 4 hours while the food is supposed to be passing through, and they're actually watching it.
Right.
And I sat outside and read a book and watched it, and I could actually see that it wasn't moving, and so she failed the gastric emptying test. So that was showing there was something physiologically happening to her. There was something wrong somewhere.
Okay.
But then Children's Hospital brought in another specialist who gave her this very invasive, horrible test, and basically said, "Oh no, based on this test," which went really wrong during the test. We were supposed to feed her 1,500 calories within a 10-minute period during this test, while they had put her under and put 38 feet of tubing through her entire body and her intestines. It was the most agonizing thing. If I had known this test was so invasive, I would have never, it's called a motility test, I would have never done it. But anyway, during it, Dakota had woken up because she had to be put under with anesthesia, and she woke up and her throat was really messed up and raw, and they were trying to make her eat like a sandwich. I'm like, this is somebody and they were waking her up from anesthesia, and she was not wanting to wake up. So
and your baby's looking at you like, Mom,
so it was like, how did you
help me?
So anyway, we have to get this food down here, and I told the nurse, I said, she can't swallow. What are we going to do? And she's like, milk, anything. So we're running in different directions. I'm taking the elevator downstairs to the snack bar to get some Jell-O and pudding.
Get some stuff,
I run back up because we only have 10 minutes. We're basically getting it in her mouth, and then she starts projectile vomiting it, and we're like pushing it in her mouth as she's throwing it out. And I looked at the lady and I said, I'm done. I'm not going to do this.
No, absolutely
I refuse to do this because there's, so anyway, based on this test, two of the doctors there, that were treating her, said that she passed the motility test, is what they said, which I disagreed with because it went awry. So, but anyway, they, based on that, tried to say that she had an eating disorder now, which wasn't an eating disorder like, that you would make yourself vomit or anything. They tried to say it was rumination, which is something where people can't eat. They have to be trained to eat.
That's okay.
One rice. But anyway, Dakota continued to vomit and have the excruciable cycles of pain. She would vomit like every 5 minutes for 3 hours every single night.
During this particular visit?
Yeah. While we were in Children's. We were still in Children's Hospital at that time.
Okay.
So finally they came to us and they said, because there were other doctors that said, no, she had cyclic vomiting. The psychiatric doctor, the Children's Hospital pediatric, they said she had cyclic vomiting, neurology, pain management. They all said it was only these other two doctors. So anyhow, the gastroenterologist came to us and said, because I kept saying, do something. What is happening here? Something's got to happen. You can't humanly throw up this much every single day of your life. So they said, well, it's going to come down to her being fed through a tube. And Dakota started crying, and I started crying, and we were like, and she was like, no way, Mom. And they said, okay, when you're ready. And it only took about a week of seeing her suffer and her vomiting the way she was. I mean, her vomiting was projectile across the room, and it was excruciating. I mean, I
can't imagine what it was doing to her insides because of the acid. But
they gave her pain medicine. They gave her morphine because her pain was so excruciating. You could hear her down the hallway screaming. I mean, it was
she had something really wrong.
It was crazy. And so basically they sent us home with a tube that went through her nose and down into her intestines. She had to have that put in while she was under anesthesia. And they sent us home for 2 months, basically with an array of medication for me to give her every day, including Valium. I gave her 2 milligrams every day of liquid Valium.
Per Children's Hospital.
Yeah, because they had me give that to her, because that seemed to be the only thing that worked.
Right, well, it calmed her down.
Yeah.
I want to step it up so we have time to say everything.
Yeah, no.
Not to minimize, because, I mean, clearly you have a long history with children's hospitals, with specialists.
And
to
no one
show.
said anything to me at Children's Hospital.
Well-
Everything was completely fine.
But wait a minute though. Let's step it up. They were respectful of you.
Yes.
They're working with you. They're listening to you. They're trying different techniques. But one day, that all changed.
Yeah, when I went to UCLA.
Okay, I want to get into that.
Okay.
Do you remember what day that was? Or
It was
what
my
month?
birthday.
Yeah.
I can remember that day because it
Yeah.
was my birthday.
All right. Well, we won't say birthdays. We don't give identifying
But it was
information.
at the end of January.
Okay.
In the year 2014.
Okay. You go to the doctors yet again.
Well, at this
UCLA.
point, my family, my friends, I have friends that are lawyers and doctors, and likewise, they were telling me, Julie, you need a new pediatrician. You need to get somebody to be the person who's going to be the director and the directive to her medical needs, because she needs help, and you've got to have somebody champion this
Right.
child's cause,
Right.
to get a definite answer
Right.
what's happening and how to fix it. So I went to this wonderful doctor in Pacific Palisades that was recommended, and she saw Dakota in the office, and Dakota actually started projectile vomiting right there in front of her in the middle of the floor. And she looked at Dakota. She said, I've never seen a child sicker that's not been in a hospital. This child needs to be in a hospital.
So that's when you went
And she was
to
on
UCLA.
the pump and with the tube and stuff. And so she
Right.
said, I'd like to send you guys to hospital for the second opinion.
Okay.
And she said, you can choose between these hospitals. She
Right.
said UCLA. And I said, yeah, absolutely. UCLA, Mattel Children's Hospital. That's a fantastic place.
Right.
I would love to go there. So she said, I'm going to admit her on Monday. She wanted to admit her that Friday.
Okay.
But I told her, I said, the specialists that you want her to see are not there till
It's not
Monday
there.
anyway.
Okay.
And if she's okay, then let's let her go home, and then we'll bring her Monday. And I said, if anything changes, by all means, I will bring her
Of
immediately. So that Friday, I got a knock on the door, and Dakota and I were home, and I opened the door, and there's two sheriffs and
At
a
your
worker,
home. And
an
a worker.
emergency social worker.
A Los Angeles County ER social worker.
No, a Department of Child Family Services social worker,
Okay.
an emergency social worker.
Right.
And they
And-
knocked on the door. And because I had been a paramedic for so many years, I didn't let them have entrance to my house.
Right.
I said to them, and I opened the door completely wide open so they could see my home.
Right.
And I said,
Which is very nice, folks, by the way. She lives in a very large home, very beautiful.
And I said to them, I said, yeah, I was a former paramedic, and I kind of know how this works, but, I have no problem with you guys talking to my daughter whatsoever.
Right, because they're asking
Because
you.
I said to them, what's the problem? They said, well, we've gotten an accusation that you're starving your child to death and only feeding her Tic Tacs.
feeding her Tic Tacs.
And I said, well, in the hospital, they had given her Tic Tacs because I guess when
Right.
you're eating through your intestines,
Right.
your mind is still hungry. So the
Right.
doctor said, if you want to give Tic Tacs, you
Right.
can have a Tic Tac.
Okay.
So that's where that came from.
Okay.
So there was a little bit of, I'm thinking the only person that really knew that was my ex-husband, because I
Okay.
had talked to him about it, because I had been telling him
Okay.
and pleading with him to come to the hospital, saying, she's really sick. I don't know what's going on. And
Okay.
I can't do this by myself.
All right, but tell me let's tell the audience, the police come to your house,
Yeah.
sheriffs are there,
Yeah.
they make this allegation.
Yeah. So
that-
I bring Dakota downstairs. She's
Okay.
completely dressed in her pajamas,
Okay.
brand new clean pajamas,
Right.
her IV pole, and I help her carry it down the stairs. She's got full thing of
Okay.
milk, which she's eating formula by now through the
Okay.
tube. And it's on a pump, so 22 hours out of the day she's getting the pump. And I brought her downstairs, and I told the social worker, I said, you can come in. The police can't, but you can come in. And she goes, I can't come in without them. I said, listen, the door's right here. I said, if you want to come in and step inside.
So
and
you're
sit
being
right
gracious
here
to
on
them.
on the couch
All
with my
right.
daughter.
Okay.
You can have a moment to talk to her. I'll go get a blanket. I go upstairs, leave my daughter with her. They're talking. I come
You're
back-
saying
yeah.
this will all be resolved.
I'm coming back downstairs, and the woman was wonderful. She said to me, oh, everything's fine, Jules. You don't have anything to worry about. We get these kind of calls from time to time, but she says, everything looks fine. Obviously, your daughter is sick and she needs help, but she looks like she's being very well cared for,
Okay.
and I'm going to put that in my report.
Excellent. So
the next day, my daughter took a turn for the worse, which was on my birthday, and it was on a Sunday morning. And I told her, I said, "We got to go to the hospital." She's like, "No, Mommy, don't. I don't want to go.
Okay.
You know, it's your birthday. I don't want to go." And I was like, "No, honey." She started to vomit blood. It was specks of blood because she had been by now throwing up for so long that now this green bile was coming up, and it was coming up whether she ate food or didn't eat food because nothing went in her stomach. It all went in directly into her intestines. But by now she's like throwing up and screaming. So we ended up going into UCLA. So
you went to UCLA. You wanted to go Monday for these experts that you knew about. You couldn't wait till then because blood is showing coming up. Yeah. Okay. You go to UCLA. I've got to speed it up because we're not going to have time to get other stuff done. Yeah. But the folks are going to know about the diagnosis and her illness very well.
Yeah.
You go to UCLA. Did they end up doing a surgery?
Yes.
They did.
It saved her life, in my opinion.
It saved her life.
It stopped the vomiting.
How long were you there? Like from that day until the day that she got out of surgery? How long was that?
It was approximately, it was January, February into March. It was almost 3 months. I lived there.
You lived there.
Yeah. I worked on Sundays, but I stayed
that's
there
what you
day.
said. So, folks, even though she's a working woman, you couldn't work because this is your baby.
Yeah,
this is your girl, and she's suffering, and nobody knows what's going on. You're not going to leave her aside. So you would literally sleep at the hospital 6 days a week, have somebody come and relieve you, and on Sundays you would put in
work.
16, 17, 18 hours, you told me. Okay.
I just was holding it together.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have any means to pay my bills at that point.
You're suffering.
But it didn't matter. Nothing mattered.
Of
because
course.
the only thing
girl.
that mattered was she was crying, "Mom, don't leave me. Don't leave me, Mom."
Help me.
I was never going to leave her side because, you know, here I have some of the most renowned specialists in the world, that are telling me they don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know what's wrong. All I know is that a person cannot humanly vomit every day of their life for 6 months straight without something finally happening. And
That's
I was
right.
thinking, now we've got blood. So is she going to die? I was so scared. I was so scared.
Oh, honey.
I really didn't know what to do.
No, I know. What day did she have her surgery, the successful surgery?
Oh, God, that was, I believe it was like, I want to say it was the last week of February or the first week of March.
Okay.
She had this surgery, this amazing gastroenterologist doctor. He basically went through.
No, don't tell us about it.
Okay.
Because we're going to miss the important
but
other
I mean,
stuff.
basically it stopped her from vomiting.
It stopped her, but she had a tube in her stomach.
Yeah. She had one in her intestines, one in her stomach, and a colostomy bag that pulled out the, pulled off the bile. So that's what stopped that, like, constant thing,
right.
you know.
But you're so relieved.
Oh, God.
You're hugging each other. You're like, this is over. It really worked. And she's recovering.
Can we back up just a minute?
For a quick second, because we're going to run out of time to tell about the other stuff that we're here to tell about.
But what happened at UCLA was that there were these 3 clinicians. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And they're from day 2 that I was in there. The first day on Monday very first day on Monday.
Don't tell me like they disagreed with you.
No, the one doctor, which I thought was really interesting, he said to me, "You have to tell us the truth."
What do you remember the name of the doctor?
Yeah, of course. I've read reviews on him.
Oh, go ahead. Tell us,
I didn't
please.
even have the worst review. Somebody else said it was the most horrible experience of their life. But his name is Dr. Nathan Lee.
Dr. Nathan Lee?
And he's a clinician at UCLA.
UCLA.
Yeah, and
Folks, if you have ever had or your children have ever had Dr. Nathan Lee from UCLA, Los Angeles, and you've had a bad experience, would you please email help@nationalsafechild.com? Go ahead. Who's the next doctor?
The
next clinician?
The major doctor was Grace Duke-Majan.
Grace
Duke
Duke
Machen.
Machen.
And Grace Duke Machen was the head of that department.
Okay.
She was head of presided.
So she did a
over
great
yeah.
job to help Dakota?
She was horrible. She was horrible.
Why do you say that?
Because she actually fought with me. She yelled in front of the children, in front of my child, yelled at me.
Why
yelled
did she
in front
yell
of the
at you?
interns? Because she kept telling me that she was presuming that it was an eating disorder. And I kept telling her, no, it's not. Dakota's had all these issues.
Since she's been 5, she's been in a multitude of...
And then the gastroenterologist and the neurology and the psychiatrist and all the other doctors are agreeing that it is cyclic vomiting and that
they're doing surgeries.
Issue. Yeah, and then
they're doing surgeries. She's good.
But they're still coming to me. Grace Duke Machen, Catherine Ross, and Nathan Lee.
All from UCLA?
All from UCLA, the clinicians. They all were saying on every bottom of every entry that they made that it was an eating disorder, and they would not take no for an answer. Even after Dakota stopped vomiting and she was healed from the surgery. These people came in and told her that she would have to go to an eating disorder clinic in Ohio, which is like a mental clinic.
Right.
Psychiatric. They wanted to do what they did to Justine Palatera. Take my daughter and put her in a mental ward for 16 months like they did her. But the thing is, as I kept telling them, I go, no, Dakota's actually eating because the gastroenterologist
She wants to eat. She just doesn't want to keep projectile vomiting.
No, but she could eat.
But now she can.
That was the miracle. And I said to the doctor, I said to them, I said, let's show you. Yeah. She's been eating. She eats like some cereal. She had a little piece of candy from somebody that gave her some candy, which she shouldn't have had, but it came out of the colostomy bag.
All right,
they
forget
saw.
about that.
But anyway, so these people seem to me to be crazy because they couldn't get it through their head that
and
half the hospitals saying that it's something else, and they're persisting on this craziness. And basically, they came to me and said, we're going to put her on a bunch of different antidepressants. And I said, no, my daughter doesn't need antidepressants. I don't want my daughter stacked on a bunch of unnecessary medication. That's not important to her healing.
You just said no.
She's healing.
You're her mom.
So what happened was they brought me a piece of paper. They said they were taking my rights away, my medical rights.
Who brought you a piece of paper?
Dr. Grace Duke Machen. I have the paper. She told me they were taking my medical rights away, that they were going to go ahead and give Dakota the medication they wanted to give her, whether I agreed with it or whether Dakota agreed with it or not. They were going to do this. And I called a friend of mine who's a doctor, and I said, this doesn't sound right. How? Because she said to me, it's based on the fact that I signed the admission slip in the emergency room. And I said to her, I've signed a lot of admission slips in emergency rooms, and I've never relinquished my medical rights to make decisions on my daughter.
So now what we need to do is, folks, when you take your child to the hospital, it isn't just a matter of signing. You have to look at what you're signing. You have to cross off that fine print that you disagree with, put your initials there, because that becomes legally binding that you are not agreeing to that. And you have to write that because you didn't think to do that because you had been in and out of the hospital, but it was that cost you.
No, that wasn't.
No.
Mm-mm. So they did that. They went ahead and put her on everything.
You have about 10 minutes left.
And my friend said, just at this point, Jules, just shut up, go sit in the corner, and don't fight with Duke Machen anymore. Don't fight with Lee, and don't fight with Ross. Just let them have their way.
Don't fight with the doctors there because they're going to have their way with your child, and they're letting you know. We don't care.
The crazy part was, in the meantime, the gastroenterologists are coming in. They're saying, you're doing fine, Dakota. You can start eating whenever you want. And they're treating her like a normal patient should be treated.
Were they collaborating with this other group, or did it seem to be that they were coming in?
Communicating, it seemed, because one wasn't even listening to the other one. Okay. And I couldn't understand for the life of me why they were trying to take my child, who's now healed, away.
The surgery's
and
over.
Send her to an eating disorder clinic where they have to learn to eat a piece of rice.
Right.
I couldn't get through my head. What is going on? And they had tried to convince me to change my medical insurance to Medi-Cal when we were in the hospital. And something just told me, don't do that. Why are they doing that? And I tell you, I found out later that if I had changed it, they would have sent her off right away.
Yes.
Against my will, against everybody's will. But it didn't matter. So what they
did social workers come in to the hospital?
So during this period, the day before my daughter's surgery, her father, her father, who has not been in her life for 7 years, and has not taken any interest in her whatsoever. Came the day before surgery.
But you had been calling him.
I had been calling him this whole time.
And
even
you're
during
saying,
Christmas,
please.
during Thanksgiving, all this time.
You're letting him know what's happening with your daughter.
But it finally took a friend of ours who is in a very high place in the movie industry, who has the ability to give him work because my former husband is a film producer.
Okay.
So
he comes.
Movies. So because I think that person got involved is that why he came. He came, and at that point, this is when my doctor friend told me to shut up and go sit in the corner and not engage with Dr. Duke Majan any further. Just let them do whatever they're going to do with Dakota.
Yeah.
And then once I get her out of there, we can take her to our doctor of our choosing.
Right.
So at that time, my ex-husband comes in, and I had stepped aside. I wasn't going to talk to the doctors at all. And all of a sudden one day I heard him saying something, and I was like, well, I thought I heard you through the door saying, yeah, she this and she that. And, and then in the meantime, this other social worker.
And he's talking with the social workers behind closed doors.
Well, there was only one social worker that I was told was going to follow up and then close the case.
Well,
and they
was she nice?
They asked me to sign everything. I signed everything like, oh, you could. Now, in retrospect, I would not have signed everything.
Do not sign anything, folks.
Because, I signed everything except for my employers.
Right.
That they couldn't contact my employer. But I had nothing to hide. I was thinking, but it doesn't matter. They'll turn everything. They'll use everything against you.
All right, but I'm going to stop you for a moment. And I know you're so passionate, but I want to get some stuff that is important. Yeah. After the surgery, were you escorted?
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute. Escorted by security out of the hospital?
Yeah. So it was several days later. It was about she had.
You're leaving.
She had
that
done
was
the
day
surgery.
that you're leaving.
We were supposed to be discharged. Dakota and I were so happy. We finally come through this horrible ordeal. We've gotten through to the other side. We're ready to put our lives back together. Dakota had been a little actress, and she was supposed to be on a really big TV show on Disney, and she actually got a good break and was sick at the time, so missed out on that. So we're thinking she can get back to her stuff.
She can finally get her life back. She's eating. She's not projectile vomiting.
You know what? If I have these tubes, nobody's ever going to know that I had any problem.
That's
and
right.
At least I can go ahead and start doing acting again. That's when they called me to a meeting. And I thought every time they called me before their meetings, it was either Dr. Lee had tried to call me into a meeting to try to give me problems and stuff and make allegations before. So what ended up happening was they presented me with a piece of paper and said that we're taking custody of your daughter. And I said, what? I said, we're supposed to go home today. She's better. I don't understand. What are you talking about?
When Jules explained this to me at the beginning, she explained where she said, she was kind of like smiling.
I was in shock.
Yeah, like it was a joke.
Yeah, I really thought are you guys playing a joke on me? I mean, because this isn't real. This isn't reality.
Like that last little jab before you girls are out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
We put you through so much, and we're going to give you, and you were kind of like chuckling like, okay. But you were actually escorted.
I was escorted in my
pajamas.
Did you
have your shoes?
I had flip-flops on.
Did you have your keys to your car?
I did not have my purse. I did not have my keys. I did not have
were you given a chance to go and get...
No.
Like a criminal?
No. I was escorted out by the police. I was crying hysterically. They kept asking me if I was going to commit suicide. I kept telling, because I was so upset. I mean, wouldn't you be? I mean, I was just like, what are you talking about? I said, my daughter's gone through hell and back again. Now you're going to take her mother from her? She's trying to heal. I don't understand. Why are you guys doing this?
What did they
wouldn't even give me an answer. They handed me a piece of paper, said, be here in 72 hours. That's all they did. And I literally.
And you were at Children's Courthouse.
Oh, God, yes.
72 hours later, and listening to these allegations and in a nutshell, what did they allege that you did wrong that justified the state coming in to the hospital and stripping you, or stripping your daughter, her mother?
And I mean, well, they said, and they put little names on it. They call it fictitious disorder now. It used to be Munchausen by proxy, but I found that it all goes under the same umbrella.
Munchausen. So in other words, in a nutshell, all the surgeries that you've done, all the medications that she's had, the morphine, the Valium. That was all really just because you're a smooth talker and this is all your fault?
Well, fictitious disorder, according to them, is that I caused my 15-year-old daughter, who's an intellectual, who's very independent young lady and very smart, to exaggerate symptoms so that she could get attention from doctors and she could get her body probed with tests.
This
I don't
attention
understand
almost
that.
cost you your home, right?
Yes.
Because you couldn't work.
Yes.
This attention cost you many jobs
Yes.
that were great.
Yes.
That's the kind of attention that they allege that you wanted,
Yeah.
that you put on your child.
Right. They said I caused her to exaggerate.
Munchausen by proxy, otherwise known, folks, as factitious
And
disorder.
I hate Munchausen by proxy because, and I've been doing a lot of research on this. There's a specialist named Helen Hayworth Brown from Australia who's the biggest advocate against fictitious disease.
Let's
and
say her
against
name.
Munchausen by proxy.
Helen?
It's Helen Hayward Brown. She's a doctor out of a doctor out of Australia, and we're definitely she is an expert witness against these cases because there is a person at UCLA, and I've since heard just hearsay, not to be factual, that UCLA has made a habit of looking at these cases predominantly because they have a doctor there named Dr. Brenda Birch, who is also the doctor who testified in Justina Palatera's case, who has actually written books on fictitious disorder and is one of the foremost people who are going after parents.
Well, it's very funny that you would bring up this doctor. Now, Brenda
Birch.
What is Birch?
Birch.
And so Brenda is in UCLA, but she's also in Arizona.
Yeah.
She
travels all around the country.
She travels all around the country.
She's the expert witness against the parents.
When it comes to what?
When it comes to Munchausen or fictitious disorder.
Factitious disorder or Munchausen.
Yeah.
Call in Brenda.
Right.
Ironically,
they
folks.
tried to make me go through a psychological evaluation with Brenda Birch.
Well, I want to say something. There was covert recording of attorneys speaking about this Dr. Brenda Birch. And they said that she was the hired gun for the state, and they were laughing about it. Dr. Birch is the hired gun for the state, according to, folks, you can find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's there. It's alive, and this is recording, and this wasn't staged. These are actual.
One of the things that Dr. Hayworth Brown brought up, which I thought was interesting because I've been doing a lot of research on this, and I believe she's also doing a documentary on this as well as my documentary, that it really is really disheartening to me because it says that paints the characteristics of a mother that has Munchausen or fictitious disorder, and it says here that the mother makes complaints about medical negligence, that the parent asks too many questions about the child's medical care, that the parent seeks a second opinion. So yes, I did ask a lot of questions about my daughter's medical care, and I did seek a second opinion. And it's really disheartening to me because it presents a pretty scary situation when it even talks to the parents are too assertive.
Right.
And that
you were working well with the
and
doctors.
that they actually become involved in their child's care. The thing is that in this day and age, I mean, I came from being a paramedic. I worked in a man's world.
Right.
I had to be assertive.
Right.
That's my nature. It's my character. It's who I am. But I'm very fair and I'm very disciplined. I have been a journalist. I've been an editor-in-chief in college of the newspaper. I know how to deal with people, I would think, on a decent level, very respectful of the doctors. But, I find the more I read about this situation, the more I see that it's presenting a bad situation where parents are going to be afraid to go forth and afraid to ask these questions and afraid to take their children to the doctors. And
Right.
it shouldn't be like that. The other thing I was telling Tammy is that once you are branded with this Munchausen by proxy or fictitious disorder, which is what they say in the juvenile court system, you are guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah.
And I told my public defender, how do you prove innocence from something that's fictitious? It's fictitious in every way. It's not
Right.
just fictitious disorder. It's made up, and it's basically a witch hunt against parents who give doctors problems. I've even seen on the internet where doctors can negate a malpractice suit by saying a parent has Munchausen by proxy.
John, I'm wondering if we can pull up. I see Brenda's picture on UCLAhealth.org. I just want to show the folks out there, because if anybody has her, they might want to. I want to make sure that this is actually her.
I want to say something about
when he
that.
pulls it up, I'm going to have him show you.
Well, the thing that I found out when I was at UCLA is when Dr. Grace Duke-Majan started yelling at me and being really assertive and just inappropriate, I asked for a medical liaison. Every hospital has one. A medical liaison is someone that comes and deals between the doctor and the parent.
Right.
Now, what I didn't know until after I left, thank God for my situation, Brenda Birch is that hospital liaison. So when you call and you're in trouble and you're worried sick about your kid and you're arguing with the doctor because you just don't have a gut feeling that might not be the right thing to do, you want to have some say, here comes Brenda Birch. And guess what? She's your friend, but she's not. Just don't be fooled by that. I was very fortunate that Brenda Birch was across the country while I was at my stay at UCLA. I was very fortunate. They were trying to call her back. They told me time and time again, where's Brenda? Get Brenda here. We need her to interview.
Right.
No, Brenda was actually testifying against another parent across country, so I was very blessed.
You lost custody of your child, Dakota, for how many months?
I fought to get my daughter back for 13 months.
Folks, 13 months. This mom has been taking care of her child above and beyond, willing to put her career aside, willing to lose their home to make sure that her child was okay and that her health was restored. And finally, after her health is restored, the bomb squad comes in to ensure that there's a big kaboom.
Yeah.
They take you out of the hospital. They take your child
No
away.
No goodbyes. Dakota cried so hard she broke all her stitches.
We don't
Her
want to talk
stomach
about Dakota
just-
because,
yeah.
folks, next week or over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have Dakota on, and we're going to listen to Dakota tell her. Put the phone away? Photo. Oh, go ahead. I don't know how.
Dakota has really become an advocate for herself and for other children because, I mean, when we look at what's happening right now to the American families being just torn away, I'm so grateful that there are
We're
people.
We're gonna show a photo right now of
Brenda.
Yeah, of
Okay,
Dr.
yeah.
Brenda Birch. We just want to
Wish
make
you could
sure.
show one of Dr. Nathan Lee and Grace Duke-Majan.
Well, no,
and
I want to make sure
Catherine
that
Ross,
this
too.
is the one
Yeah.
because
Because
John,
they
are we
come
able
in
to
as
get
they're
this
helping.
on? Oh, okay. Folks, we're having a little bit of a delay because we're in the studio, but when you see this picture, just say, is this Dr. Brenda Birch? Just if you would just confirm for us, because we want to make sure.
I've never met her.
Oh, you've
No,
never met her.
because remember they were trying to get her on my case, but she was doing
So,
the
so have
Justina
you ever, you've
Palateric
never
case.
seen
She
her? Did you ever
was
see a
testifying.
picture of her?
No, I've seen her. Yeah, I know who she is. Yeah.
Is this her?
That's her, yeah.
Folks, you know,
Definitely.
I mean, we're not making any allegations other than an abundance of parents feel as though they are being victimized. Their parents are told to call the hospital liaison if they have a complaint. Lo and behold, this Dr. Birch is the liaison for UCLA.
And it's just sad that there's doctors like her out there that are promoting this fictitious disorder, because they were saying that, first of all, Munchausen is supposed to be, I'm not a doctor in any way or a psychiatrist.
Well, she's not a medical doctor,
yeah.
folks, and I think everybody should know this.
Yeah.
She has a PhD.
Oh, Dr. Brenda Birch.
Well, yeah. Brenda Birch is what I choose, because she has a PhD. That is not a medical doctor.
Right.
Forensic assessment of illness, falsification, Munchausen.
But Munchausen is a very rare disorder. My understanding of Munchausen is where a parent actually physically makes a child sick or messes with giving them some poison or something. I don't know.
Right.
But, like when doctors get children that they can't diagnose, they test. I mean, I was told by the doctors at Children's Hospital, they tested for everything.
Of course.
I was even told by one of the nurses they do rule out Munchausen, because they do test for everything,
But when you went into court, children's court,
that was a joke.
You must have walked in like, my gosh, thank God I'm out of there, and I'm going to approach this judge. I'm a professional. I'm upstanding.
I'll tell you what happened.
Citizen in my community.
I'll tell you what happened to me. I was left on the sidewalk at UCLA in Westwood, California, without my purse, I was in my pajamas. I was escorted out. I couldn't say goodbye to my daughter. They went and grabbed a bunch of stuff from my room, which they didn't know what they were grabbing.
To give to you.
To give me my stuff, but they didn't know what they were grabbing. So I guess Dakota said they were grabbing her stuff, giving it to me. They brought it down in a roller cart. At least I had my purse and my car keys.
Right.
That's what I wanted. I called my son. I was crying. I was crying beyond crying. It was the worst day of my life. I can't even imagine what my daughter was going through. She had gone through this hell. This is finally her moment to get better and get our life back together.
Yes.
And now she is having her life literally ripped away from her. Her home, her bed, her community, her friends, her acting career, everything gone in an instant. And she is going and being threatened with foster care.
Jules, we almost have to wrap it up. We're not done because we need to continue this.
Okay.
Clearly we do. There's a lot, and you're passionate about this.
Well, that's why I'm doing this documentary.
So, okay, we have about a minute and a half left. Tell me about the documentary. Folks, we are going to continue just because this story is incredible. We didn't get to the meat and potatoes, but it's good because now, if you want to find out, you have to return to listen to more.
There's a lot.
It gets. I mean, the nitty gritty really comes out. What happened to you it's right out of a movie, a horror movie. And do you think that Child Protective Services protects children? Did they protect your child?
No, I don't think that.
Did they hurt your child?
They hurt my child.
Did they ever? Well, we're not going to get into it right now, but I will leave you with this, folks. And I want to promote your site for a moment. There was some medical things done afterwards that really caused your child some damage, and we're not going to talk about them, but all under the auspice of direction from Child Protective Services.
Yeah.
Folks, it really gets bad.
Yeah.
We need to talk about your website quick because we have to wrap it up.
Well, because of this, I started this organization called Kids Deserve a Voice, because I believe very strongly that children have no rights and they need to have rights. And we have to change that by creating a bill that will give these children rights. I also wanted to have one place that everyone can come. I go online, I read story after heartbreaking story. We need to physically come together in numbers, in masses. We need to protest on City Hall. We need to protest right where Mike Antonivich's office is. We need to get a better situation for parents, that we can do reunification of families. We don't want children taken out in the middle of the night out of their beds and ripped out and put into police cars. I think that we should change that warrant to make it a 72-hour warrant where the parents will at least be able to come to court with those children and at least plead their case instead of children being ripped out on Christmas Eve.
Give us the name of your website.
It's called Kids Deserve a Voice, and that's spelled KIDZ.
Okay.
DER, deserve a voice, .org.
Kids deserve a voice, just as it sounds.
Yeah.
One word.
Well, it's KIDZ, though.
KIDZ DESERVEAVOICE.org. ORG, folks. You started this because kids deserve a voice.
And because my daughter right now is still
No, we're not going to talk about it.
But I'm just saying she's healing from her emotional ordeal now.
Listen.
Of what they've put her through.
Research clearly shows that, Bob Powell, Northern California, fabulous attorney. Yeah, he really broke it down when he said one night being removed from your parents' home could be a lifelong traumatic
It's PTSD for kids.
Situation.
You think of PTSD in war and with our soldiers.
Yeah.
This is PTSD for children,
That's
which
right.
is the worst kind because they don't even know what's happening to them, and they don't know how to get help like some soldiers do. We need to be there for them.
That's for sure. So we're going to continue this. Folks, I want to take a moment, please, to dedicate this show to my dad, who is very ill and has been told he doesn't have long. So I want to tell you, Dad, that I love you and thank you for all that you've done. You know, folks, we have to keep fighting the good fight. And we're going to have you back on.
And God bless this woman here.
Oh,
she
and God
has
bless this
done
woman.
everything. I can't even believe what an angel she is. She is out there. She's fighting for all these children, and we have got to support her. She is an amazing, beautiful spirit. Thank you, Tammy, for everything you do.
Thank you, Jules. I'm really, really excited, folks, because Jules' documentary is going to be off the chart, and I know that there's some movie people that are planning something in downtown, and we'll get more into it next time. And you were told that you could allow some people to come in other than the movie people and the movie sets. So, folks, it might be a great opportunity for the victims to be able to voice your opinion. Dad, I love you. Mom, I love you. I'm so grateful for my parents and all of their support throughout my life. And I'm so sorry for the parents that want to support their children. And that right, that liberty is stripped from them from a system that clearly is broken. UBN, thank you. John, I love you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you, Jules. I honor you. And this isn't done, so I don't know if it'll be next week or the week after. I know you have to look at your schedule, but...
You know, somebody said something to me the other day about, you know, when you have an Amber Alert.
Yes.
Someone said we should have Amber Alerts for parents that are getting their kids taken away.
Folks.
So that we can actually, somebody can show up and at least be videotaping that situation.
Well, we have some things that are in the making.
Yeah.
Maybe by next week it'll be done. It's an app, folks, that is coming out that will be for all parents, and it will be a live streamed app. So even if they take your phone, guess what? They're not taking that ability to get the horrific situation out to the public. So,
and one last thing, I wanted to put a shout out to medical kidnapping. Medical Kidnapping, I subscribe to them, and I recommend
Medical
everybody.
Kidnap.
I'm sorry, Medical Kidnap is a site online that is actually reaching out to all these parents that are victimized by DCFS or CPS, and they are writing these articles and they are exposing these stories. And keep up the good work. They are amazing. I subscribe to them, and I get these stories daily. I think everyone should.
Imagine you get it daily, which means that
how many people
this
it's
type
happening
of
to.
criminal activity within a system that is only established to protect, but Medical Kidnap is showing that they're not really protecting. MedicalKidnap.com, kidshaveavoice.org.
Kids deserve a voice.
Kids deserve a voice. .org. Okay, folks, we love you. We'll see you here next Sunday. Next Sunday, we're going to open up the phone lines because we're going to have some dialogue going on. So we'll have the number. UBN Radio, thank you. Have a great week. Be safe, folks. Keep your children safe and don't sign anything. Even if somebody threatens you, don't sign anything. God bless you.
God bless.
I love you, Dad.
Thank you for listening to the National Safe Child Show on UBN Radio. For past episodes, visit the archives on ubnradio.com. And for more information, go to nationalsafechildcoalition.com. Welcome.
The views and opinions expressed in these radio programs are those of the individual hosts and do not reflect the official policy or position of Universal Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard to find. Talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting.